With Creed 2 out in theaters now, we now have 8 movies in the Rocky universe, so it's time to rank these from worst to best. So let's get started and cue the montage. Hey everybody, my name is Justin and I love to watch movies. If you guys love to watch movies too, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and hit that bell notification so you guys don't miss any of my ranking videos, movie reviews, trailer reactions, whatever it may be. Make sure to join the channel. Today we're going to rank all 8 of the Rocky universe movies. We have 6 Rocky movies and 2 Creed films. This franchise started in the 70s with the Best Picture winner Rocky, and we have now Creed 2 in 2018. It's been a long journey, a lot of montages, a lot of plastic surgery, but whatever it may be, these movies are still enjoyable to watch. Before we get into this video, make sure to leave your ranking down below on how you would rank all 8 of these movies. So let's start this ranking video off with number 8, Rocky 5. On paper, Rocky 5 seems like a good idea. They wanted to kind of go back to the roots of the Rocky movies, and at times it seems like they're going that direction. But the ultimate sin in here is that they made Rocky almost like a villain in this movie. He cared more about being a champion rather than spending time with his son. And you know, he was training this young kid, and then the young kid turned him against him, and they had this really weird street fight at the end, and then it just kind of ended in a happy moment. But everything up until that time, it felt like Rocky was not Rocky. It wasn't the Rocky that we knew from the previous films, and that was just, it felt off. This movie just feels like out of place compared to the other Rocky movies. It had a good intention, but just did not work out. Coming at number 7 is Rocky 4. This is a product of the 80s. Besides all of the montages in here, this doesn't really have a gripping story going for it. We have Apollo Creed who wants to fight Ivan Drago, and Creed goes against his morals and his characteristics, becomes a completely different character in this movie. And then we have him dying, which sets up the Creed movies. And then we have Rocky taking on Ivan Drago. This movie is filled so much with montages that I almost forgot to tell an actual story. I do think the montages are pretty cool, and it's a product of the 80s, and they're cheesy and they're fun and exciting, but there's just a little bit too much with them. Coming in at number 6 is Rocky 2. Rocky 2 did a great job of expanding the first movie and kind of building up that and building upon that, but it just kind of feels like the first Rocky movie. That doesn't feel original at all. It picks up literally where the first movie left off with that fight and how he's struggling to find a job with his lack of education. It does do a great job of building up the relationship between Rocky and Adrian. I do appreciate that. But at its core, it's a very unoriginal movie that also is not exciting at times. Coming in at number 5 is Rocky 3. This is where the franchise starts to become a little bit corny with Hulk Hogan, and there's Mr. T in here, and it's all very over the top and just corny as can be. But I still find enjoyment in those moments, and this movie manages also to kind of paint Rocky as someone who's starting to fame is getting to his head. You can tell that he's starting to have some plastic surgery in this movie, but he's dressing fancier. He's having more money, and I think that's a typical approach for someone who has this new kind of fame. And I like that they kind of explored what he was doing with the money and how it kind of got to his head, and it kind of led to other movies in the franchise having a realistic approach to someone who was a great boxer like the Italian Stallion. But this movie also did get very corny at times. The Hulk Hogan fight in the beginning is absolutely ridiculous, but I laughed when watching that. And Mr. T, Clubber Lang, is just like over the top in this whole entire movie, and it makes it silly but also an enjoyable film. Coming in at number 4 is Creed 2, the latest Rocky movie, and I think this movie did a great job of building on the relationship between Rocky and Creed. It's really great in here. Bianca and Creed as well, the relationships is sweet, but what I appreciated most about this movie is the backstory for the Drago family and what had happened after the 4th film and what had happened after he lost to Rocky. I do appreciate that backstory, added that emotional depth to the characters that I was not expecting to see, and I really got on board with it. This movie is a little bit predictable at times, and we do feel the absence of Ryan Coogler in here. I really loved his approach for the first film, and it does feel a little bit different and predictable, but I do appreciate a lot of things in this movie. Coming in at number 3 is Rocky Balboa. Now, Rocky Balboa was the first Rocky movie I had ever seen, so I didn't have many expectations going into this movie. I didn't really know what the franchise was about when I saw this movie, and I watched it and I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool film. I want to check out the other movies, and I did, and Rocky Balboa feels like it's trying to recreate that tone from the first movie, and it's probably the most successful at doing that. With the tone for this movie and the storyline, it definitely does feel like a sequel to that Rocky movie. He's trying to develop a relationship with his son, it's just not working. It feels like a realistic approach to this character. It's emotional at times, and I do think that it did a great job of recapturing what the Rocky movie did many years ago, despite this movie setup being very corny and why Rocky decides to fight this young guy.
If two athletes from different eras could actually compete against one another, who would come out on top? In one corner, the reigning champion at Mason the Line Dixon. He'll be pitted against the former 2-time heavyweight champion, Rocky Balboa. Computer says Rocky Balboa would be triumphant.
It's very ridiculous. I really don't buy into it, but besides that fact, I do think Rocky Balboa is a very surprising film. After watching all of the other movies, I was surprised on how different Rocky Balboa was than Rocky 5 and 4 and 3 and even 2, and I really did appreciate that, and I thought it was a great film. Coming in at number 2 is Creed. Upon first thought, I thought Creed was a cash grab for the Rocky fans. What had happened was it landed as one of my favorite films of 2015. Ryan Coogler previously directed Fruitvale Station, and I think that he did such a terrific job handling this movie, adding the nice touch to Adonis Creed's story, throwing in Rocky, but not having it be all about Rocky as well, having that nice balance. The intense fighting sequences were perfect. The directing style was perfect in this movie. And I like how Adonis Creed was dealing with the fact that he is the son of Apollo Creed, and he had to live up to the name while also kind of being his own person. I love that struggle that he had, and it gave depth to the character and great character development in this movie. It is one of the biggest surprises of 2015. And it landed, I think, in my top 10. It was just an all-around epic movie that just didn't focus on what had happened after Apollo Creed's life. I think all around this movie was terrific. But my favorite Rocky movie is number 1, Rocky. The first Rocky movie is a great movie and one of my all-time favorite sports films. When you look at this movie, it's much more than just a boxing movie. It's a love story between an underdog and a really shy girl, and how they kind of were attracted to each other, and how he was all about Adrian and he wanted to, just spend so much time with her. It's a really sweet story with boxing thrown in. When I think of Rocky, I think of a love story. It's a very sweet film, and how he spends his time with Adrian. And this movie was very deserving of its Best Picture award in the 70s. I forgot what year it was, but it was very deserving. It's a movie that had emotional weight to it. The boxing scenes were filmed very nicely. Sylvester Stallone gives a really good performance in this movie. All around, this movie had so much going for it, and I was so happy with this movie, and it still remains a classic in my eyes. And every time I watch it, I'm happy with watching this movie, and it still remains one of my all-time favorite films. Not just my favorite Rocky film, but one of my all-time favorite films in general. It's such a classic, it's beautiful, and I love the boxing in it as well. So how would you rank all 8 Rocky films? Leave your list down below. How would you rank these? And would you like to see another Creed film? I know these are pretty successful films critically and at the box office. Remember, my name is Justin Watch Movies. If you guys like movie reviews, trailer reactions, ranking videos like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. You guys are the best as always. This is Just Watch Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.